All right, welcome to our Illuminate Developers Group. And we used to call ourselves Blackboard Data Developers. Now it's a much nicer, welcoming name, Illuminate, because that's what we want to do with our end users. So throughout our presentation, we, of course, invite your questions. I'm going to have the chat open here to kind of scan, but if there's a question that I miss, please feel free to speak up. And Kunal Shah is a developer at University of Illinois Chicago, and he's going to help me in this presentation. Kunal, what's your experience so far with developing with Snowflake and Blackboard Data?
It's nice, like having to get to play with this much of data with so many insights that you could bring out. It's really amazing.
Well, and I didn't tell him I would ask him this question, so I'm kind of happy that he's happy. But my name is Simon Mahayevsky, and I'm an associate director of academic technology and learning innovation at the University of Illinois Chicago. And the first few slides I wanted to share are from our organizers. And so just informing about things that are happening in the community. So we have the roadmap webinar. Of course, very excited about AI playing a huge role in many areas. Milestone announcements coming up, also AI getting to milestone. Additional slide here for customer success stories. And there's a place on Anthology's website, but also on LinkedIn. They've been popping up really nice with videos as well. This month, we are celebrating Global Accessibility Awareness Month. A lot of events. We have some workshops at UIC. Yeah, that's a great idea. I will put those links. Kunal, can I ask you to open the presentation on your computer and just copy and paste links into the chat? All right, thank you. All right, so Global Awareness Month, huge deal. And what's happening in technology for disabilities is just huge. And so some of the things that we'll talk about, we'll touch on that. But I think the GPT-4o announcement or the Omni GPT announcement during the Accessibility Awareness Month is also very, very fitting. All right, and hopefully we'll see you at Anthology together. Kunal and I will be there. We have some presentations. We also have a meetup scheduled for our group. So hopefully we'll be able to collaborate there as well. All right, we have a few programs. It's good to save the dates. Of course, different folks are maybe in the exploration phase of base navigation. Others might be looking at ultra conversions. We are very much interested in the ultra conversion program. I just saw a really nice set of documentation pieces, and I posted on my LinkedIn site from University of Pretoria, South Africa. They call Blackboard UpClick, and so they call it UpClick Ultra, a really kind of nice campaign. All right, we also have a really nice Ultra user group. I invite you to that. Really, really insightful presentations. And so on Thursday, the 16th, we had data-driven approaches to flipped learning. And so this is already recorded. And if you navigate in the community system, you can watch the recording for it. And upcoming one is the integration and experience of adapting Blackboard Learn Ultra in Peru. So really nice and diverse presentations. Office hours, really, really great part of our community. What this means is that you meet up with other administrators and focus on a specific piece. And LI, of course, is a great product used across all LMS systems on the market today that Anthology provides. All right, and so we have a number of awards. This is just one of them, but if you look up some of the LinkedIn posts, Blackboard's been earning awards left and right, so that's kind of encouraging. All right, so back to our presentation. We want to explore the use of AI. We'll talk about Azure API. We will talk about some of the other players. And we did this presentation before the announcement for GPT-4o. So very quickly, I inserted a couple of slides because holy cow, they really did a number on the very things that we're talking about here today. So what is our presentation about? Well, our presentation is about what we were focusing on in this group, which is, we write SQL statements, we create applications, we are developers to show to the end users some insights. And these typically are learning analytics, but they can be connected also to institutional analytics. The Snowflake system is our data source. And we basically are sitting kind of on a gold mine of data. And at UIC, our data goes to 2012. So by now we have over a decade of data through the pandemic as well, where we can see student behaviors, how students were handling the pandemic. We can connect all of that to the SIS data, so we can start narrowing it down to specific groups of students. So great field for research. And usually the output of our work was either some kind of a report or visualizations. And here's an example of visualizations that we are working on, and Kunal has been a main developer on this, where we have a gallery of insights. So we want to show how video quizzes are being adopted, how other parts of the LMS are adopted. We even provide insights on how many A grades are being posted this week. And then you get kind of a larger display of it. And there are two problems that we kind of stepped forward to handle. One is the digital accessibility of this data. In the past, to make a graph or a plot accessible, you were asked to provide a data table of the same data. Well, guess what? That on paper fulfills the requirement, but if you look at a data table, even next, if you have a screen reader read it to you, you certainly are not going to get the insights, right? So we are looking for a better way to read plots, especially for people with low vision and other disabilities. But the second part is, how do you help people who are looking at this chart and they're just not getting it? Or their question is, well, how is this useful to me, right? What is this graph saying? Because data literacy is not something that everybody is familiar with, and most of the time it takes some insightful thinking to understand an insight or a pattern. You have to sometimes scroll and see the dates, like what day are these tallest peaks? Well, you have to kind of go to the bottom. So these are all difficulties that perhaps are a different level of accessibility, not just accessibility due to disabilities, but simply human beings not getting the point. So we've started a project where we explored various areas of AI to help. And by the way, last year when we met in Anthology together, I talked about using ChatGPT to write SQL statements, right? So whatever you do in Snowflake, at that time, you could use ChatGPT to correct your code. You could feed the names and fields of tables, and then it knew basically what the relationships were. So even a year ago, we already talked about using AI with data. But this year, and I'll just briefly talk about what, of course, is happening. Ally is an AI tool. Why? Because it's using machine learning to explore data and to provide insights about it. So Ally used AI or machine learning, well, for decades now. And I think that's an interesting thought that we as a community got excited about the AI systems when generative AI walked in. at the free level, right? Because you could have always paid for Jasper blog writing, for a long time before that. But when ChatGPT made it free, that was the biggest innovation, and suddenly everybody kind of woke up to AI. But not Anthology. They had AI in the light for a long time. And today, we also see Anthology Illuminate start surfacing data on how the AI inside of the LMS is used. So we know the AI design assistant that has capacity to create quizzes, also rubrics and authentic assignments. And so there is a table now that we can use, and there will be reports coming up at the UI level also. So a lot going on in terms of Anthology and AI. But something that we've always been stressing, and we've been talking about AI for accessibility for some time now, is that AI has huge potential to just change the game altogether, right? Because of its text-to-speech text-to-speech translation. So when you can't see it, can simply read to you things very well. Image description. I understand that Ally is coming with a feature where image description will be automatically generated or suggested to the user soon. Summarization of long texts, automated captioning, again, a historical feature today, but it basically uses machine learning. And then predictive recommendations and adaptive content, something that we will hear probably more and more because these are somewhat deeper functions of generative AI. I will also mention that accessibility, even though for some is an afterthought, in other words, you write an application that sells, and then you figure out how to get approved at universities. We see huge benefit in involving the community that works on accessibility early on. Why? Because automatic captioning and captioning in general is a huge benefit to all students, right? If you ever walk to the library, or if you are doing something at home and you don't want the video to play, but you still want to know, right? Because maybe there's other people in the room, captioning is huge. Or audiobooks, right? Another technology developed for people with disabilities, but we totally everyone is benefiting partly because disabilities is a spectrum, and we find that there are plenty of people with dyslexia, whether severe or mild. And these people in the past just said, "Oh, I don't like reading. It kind of hurts to read," right? And then they were not progressing in certain fields. With audiobooks, they find that, oh, learning is fun. So huge benefits in focusing on accessibility because it benefits everyone. So this is the dashboard. That's where we started. And now I'm going to throw it over to Kunal, who's going to talk about our first attempt, the first kind of plan to follow a little bit what Anthology was doing and to use the API through Microsoft. Go ahead, Kunal.
Yeah. Can I share my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So what we did was we got Simon helped us getting a Azure subscription, so we were able to play with that. We used Azure AI services for all the AI analysis that we do. The first thing that we tried was we tried the Azure OpenAI chat completion API. So Azure has a chat completion API in which you provide all the conversation and you get the GPT response. So we used GPT-3.5 Turbo model, and it had a 32,000 token token context window. So what are tokens? Tokens can be thought of as pieces of words. They're not exactly words, but they could be part of a word. It could also include spaces. It's just a way in which your input is broken down and processed. So for cost, it costed us for 1,000 tokens, it costed us about 0.5 cents for input and like 0.15 cents for output. So it's not that expensive. The limitation that we had with this model was it had no state. So it did not remember what conversation it was having. So for every response, you had to send all your previous conversation as well as data. So the 32,000 context window was getting filled very fast. Like you could have like 5 or 6 uh, twos frozen back, and then your context window was over. So the next thing, so Azure released the Assistants API. It's new. We haven't used it, but it's a stateful evolution, and it overcomes the limitations of the chat API. So what it does is you can create a assistant, and you can give it instructions and data, and it creates threads for every conversation, and it remembers the thread. So you don't have to manage the conversation. You don't have to pass your whole conversation again and again. It does all of that automatically. So you don't have to handle all of that. It released, I think, last month, so it's relatively new. It's still in preview. It's not available to everyone. So we are planning to test this thing next. Uh, so what we did was we had a backend API service which was providing the data for the visualization. We used that. We extracted the data that was necessary, and we appended this data to a set of instructions and the user messages so that the GPT could respond, and it had context of what it was responding to. So it was not out of context. So we used this. And as you can see on the slide, here is an example of the UI. So the user could just ask, what insights do you have about the chart? And we passed all of the data and some instructions that you are an instructor and you have access to data, you know how to explain data, some basic instructions that you give to GPT, and then the GPT responds based on that. I think that's it. I'll give it back to Simon.
Thank you very much. Yes, so Kunal did the hard work, and I want to stress kind of what happens in innovation is that oftentimes the people that wait until the innovation and the resources kind of come to fruition, and then they develop a kind of a smooth and nice product. We saw that with an iPhone. It wasn't the first mobile phone. I remember Nokia being able to run Java apps. And so we see right now a lot of people coming up with things, and we find that, hey, there are some limitations. And so what we were concerned with Azure is that, yeah, there's a cost. It's a relatively small cost, but we had to find a sponsor to fund this project for the university, which we did. The other piece, of course, is that as we saw the development of global kind of or freely available AI systems, they were going much faster than what the API in Azure was doing, and that's just how sometimes API goes. You can't change your backend as fast to maybe adapt it to the next one. So what we did next in our research was to try a different method. Well, is there a no-code way of doing this? And by no code, I mean in this particular one, there was some code. Mostly Kunal coded it. So what we did was we used Perplexity. And by the way, if you have never used Perplexity, it is just the coolest thing ever. It allows you to do a search. It'll preview all the not all the but most of the meaningful results, and then it'll give you a summary. So in this instance, we thought that this will be a very good tool because it will provide the sources. So in the middle of the slide, you can see Perplexity providing sources where it got information. And by the way, you can limit the sources only to academic sources, or you can search only YouTube. It's really useful that way. But what we found also is that you can provide sources. So we created our internal URL with data. And this was where a little development took place, because instead of showing a chart, we basically put all this data into a table. So very much what we used to do for accessibility needs. But no one was asked to look at that table. That table was fed as a resource to Perplexity. So now Perplexity would read it very quickly. And then we were asking, well, what do you see in this data? So this was a way to provide a link under each one of our charts. We could provide a link to a shared Perplexity or a previously prepared Perplexity conversation, because Perplexity allows you to do that, where you simply share the conversation, and it did the job. So it would tell you about the source, about the data, and it of course even provided some related questions. It was a way to do it. Now, relying, of course, on a free service like Perplexity, it can be licensed, but let's say we will use it free. The good thing is that you don't have to log into Perplexity, right? So all of that works for public charts and plots. But we kind of dug deeper, because one of the issues was, again, that not all AI systems will use live data to have a conversation as a reference. And we wanted to take advantage of Claude that was just coming out. And of course, when it comes to AI, the next thing was so much always better than the previous one. So we tried to find a way to integrate Claude into our data charts. So we came up with a way to do it. So basically, once you look at one of our charts, there will be a Learn More button, and the Learn More would display this kind of generic description of what it is you're looking at. And then we had a number of other things that we tried, and we tried Hugging Face and others. So next, what we did is we created this button called Copy Prompt. Now, what that allowed us to do is when you clicked on Copy Prompt, it took all the data from the chart and then allowed you to paste it into AI of your choice. Because this is public data, and this is data that we share anyway, this was not a problem. More would have to be done in order to, of course, protect data, but it's not impossible. And we found that Claude was actually really, really good with providing these insights. So the user would copy, paste into Claude, and then run with a conversation about the data. The beautiful thing of it is that, of course, the conversation is in text, so it's very accessible. You get the insights, and at the end of the day, you can continue the conversation and reference the points above. So that's what we saw earlier. Now, let me just take a quick break, because what I just realized is that the slide that I opened up did not open with the newest slide deck that I wanted to. So if you imagine sometimes things go not according to plan, we're going to... Kunal, tell us a good joke. Do you have a...
I'm really bad at that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Next piece that I want to mention is what we saw as kind of the next step, what we saw yesterday with the GPT-4o. And with GPT-4o, what they showed was a client app that was able to see the screen, and it did exactly what we were trying to accomplish in text form. But they were accomplishing it in multimodal form. So there was no need to put the plot in a text form and then send it to AI and then ask it again in a chat form. But simply, the AI was looking at the graph, and through magic of OpenAI, it was collecting all the data points, and it then went on to say the plot displays, and you could ask all those insights that we were demonstrating. So the reason why I'm showing it is because we are in this time of AI where we're innovating, we're trying things out, but we totally agree with OpenAI that this is the direction, and it'll help us to overcome those two problems that I mentioned earlier. One is accessibility for the needs of helping people with disabilities. And the second one is for people who simply need more data literacy to help them to understand how to read the graph and what the graph shows. And there's a video that demonstrates this. I have it on my LinkedIn feed. Hopefully we'll share it with you as well. So wanted to make sure that we don't lose this particular slide, but that was a piece to share. And so just overall, I want us as developers to be mindful that we didn't get here from 2022 fall, right? AI didn't drop from the sky. In fact, ChatGPT was about 2 years old already when it was given out for free. It was a desperate kind of business decision. So the key, points were being developed slowly, and now we see a huge increase in innovation of AI, and we're really, really encouraged about it. I would say the most important part that AI provides is the zone of proximal development. So it makes tasks not extremely easy, but also it makes them not so difficult that people are anxious and they will give up. So finding that zone of proximal development, which is a learning theory, is important in data analysis as well. When you present your findings, your insights, you want those who already know the basics to quickly progress forward, and then to lead them through the next parts. And so a great way to do that with AI, as we saw that. And for accessibility, you might be familiar with this picture. It's very commonly shown as a way to talk about what needs to be done for accommodations. And when it comes to this particular picture, I imagine these boxes to be AI, and they are now digital, right? So they don't have to be hardware. They're not going to be expensive. More and more of them are free. So we will be able to change that. But we have to think differently about this picture. I think that for observers to just look at the game, right, that's not full accessibility, right? I want these people to be able to participate in the game. We don't want to help just spectators, but how do you put people in the game? So the next thing in data for AI is going to be for people to be able to really reach down to the data, not just to the graphs that we show, but reach to the data and be part of the game in the arena. So this is our presentation. We definitely want to thank you very much for sticking with us. We again do plan on meeting up at Anthology together. I want to share just maybe a couple of links that are not on the slides. Yeah, this one will be a good one. It's kind of a copy link to the post. So this link right here will take you to that presentation by OpenAI, where the YouTube video goes directly to their presentation on the plots. It's just a beautiful system. Okay. Any questions about what we've presented, or any questions about Snowflake? I know that some of you are in the group to get SQL help, and we do have a discussion forum that might be somewhat helpful. Any comments at all? All right. So we are available, of course, there in the community group, but I want to also stress that we have upcoming. It's today, meeting with Steve, and he's going to be trying to arrange for that AI report in Illuminate. So how do we kind of surface the data on how well AI is used there? All right, Lorena, will you be sharing the AI prompts? So the prompts that we used were well, they're in the slides, but they were not, there was no engineering taking place there. It just said, what are your insights about this data? So that's all that we were asking of AI. And in Perplexity, that was the prompt. And when you copy and paste it into Claude as well. Yeah, so prompt engineering, not necessary. Our idea was just to get the conversation going with AI, provide the data, and then let the user ask whatever their next step was upon seeing the initial insights. Yeah. All right. Well, Kunal, thank you so much for being sport today and doing the links and talk about Azure. Really appreciate your help and I appreciate your work with Snowflake. There's more that we'll share with the community soon. And yeah, if there's no other questions, thank you all. And
Thank you.
we'll see you out there in the community.